Have you ever stood helpless, watching someone you love struggle to breathe? Emily had every single night. And when she finally asked for help, just $50, the whole diner froze. Where are you watching from? Because sometimes, when you dare to speak your fear out loud, the universe whispers back in the most unexpected voice. Keanu Reeves didn't just listen, he showed up. And what followed turned one girl's desperate plea into a movement that healed more than just lungs. It healed an entire town. The afternoon sun filtered through dusty windows at Daisy's diner, casting long shadows across worn linoleum floors that had seen better decades. Emily Harper's hands trembled as she gripped the coffee pot, the weight of desperation heavier than the ceramic in her grasp. At 18, she carried burdens that would crush most adults, her slender frame moving between tables with practiced efficiency born from necessity rather than choice. Willow Grove, Ohio sat like a forgotten memory 50 miles from Columbus, one of those Rust Belt towns where dreams went to die and hope became a luxury few could afford. The diner hummed with the melancholy tune of an old jukebox, its melody mixing with the quiet conversations of regulars who had nowhere else to go. This was Emily's world, small and suffocating, yet it held everything she loved. Her mind raced with numbers she'd calculated 1,000 times. $47 in their cookie jar, $200 for Liam's prescription. The math was simple, but the gap felt insurmountable. Her 8-year-old brother's severe asthma had worsened, and without his new inhaler, every breath became a battle he might lose. Emily had watched him struggle through sleepless nights, his small chest rising and falling with effort that broke her heart. In the corner booth sat a stranger who seemed to belong to a different world entirely. Dark jeans, black t-shirt, baseball cap pulled low over eyes that held stories she couldn't read. He ate apple pie with quiet concentration, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing in Emily's chest. Something about his stillness drew her attention. Perhaps the way he seemed comfortable in his own skin. Or maybe it was simply that he represented possibility in a place where possibilities had long since dried up. Heart hammering against her ribs, Emily made a decision that would change everything. She approached his table with steps that felt both too fast and too slow, her voice barely above a whisper when she finally spoke. "Sir, I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but could you maybe tip $50? My little brother needs medicine just to breathe." The words hung in the air like a prayer sent to an uncertain heaven. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. Betty, the cook whose spatula had stirred a million meals, froze mid-flip. Old Jim, who'd occupied the same stool for 15 years, turned with wide eyes. Mike, the truck driver passing through on his route to Nowhere Special, looked up from his newspaper. Time crystallized around this moment of raw vulnerability. The stranger lifted his gaze, and Emily saw something unexpected in those kind eyes. Not judgment or annoyance, but curiosity mixed with genuine concern. "What's your brother's name?" he asked, his voice carrying warmth that seemed to wrap around her fear. "Liam," she managed, her voice cracking like thin ice. "He's 8 years old, and he dreams of building spaceships that could take him to the stars." The man gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Tell me about Liam," he said simply. And somehow Emily found herself sitting, words pouring from her like water through a broken dam. She spoke of Liam's bedroom walls covered in spaceship drawings, each one more elaborate than the last. She described how he studied NASA missions with the intensity of a scholar, memorizing launch dates and astronaut names while his small body fought for each precious breath. The story grew darker as Emily's voice dropped to barely audible whispers. 3 years ago, on a rain-slick stretch of Route 23, her parents' car had skidded into tragedy, leaving Emily and her grandmother Clara to raise a dreamer whose lungs betrayed his soaring spirit. Clara worked double shifts at the textile mill, her arthritic hands never complaining, while Emily balanced high school with waitressing, both of them determined to give Liam the future his brilliant mind deserved. Then the stranger did something that would echo through Emily's memory forever. He removed his baseball cap, revealing a face that belonged on movie screens and magazine covers. "I'm Keanu Reeves," he said with quiet simplicity. "And I think we need to talk about Liam, about you, and about this town that's forgotten how to hope." The diner erupted in gas and dropped utensils. Betty's spatula clattered to the floor while old Jim's jaw worked soundlessly. But Emily barely noticed the commotion, too stunned by the impossible reality sitting across from her. Without anyone noticing, Mike had pulled out his phone, capturing this moment of grace unfolding in real time. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, uploading the video to social media with trembling excitement. The caption read simply, "Waitress asks Keanu Reeves for $50 tip in Ohio diner. What happens next will restore your faith in humanity." Within minutes, the hashtag Keanu Kindness began trending as the video spread like wildfire across the internet. Keanu leaned forward, his voice taking on the weight of personal experience. He spoke of his own cross-country motorcycle journey, a quest to rediscover meaning after losing people who mattered more than fame or fortune. His girlfriend and best friend had left holes in his heart that success couldn't fill, creating an emptiness he was still learning to navigate. Emily's courage in asking for help reminded him of all the times he'd failed to reach out when he should have. All the moments when pride had prevented him from being truly human. "I couldn't save someone I loved once," he said, his voice carrying years of regret. "I won't let that happen to Liam. Not when I can do something about it." He pulled out his phone and called Harper's Drugs on Main Street, speaking quietly with the pharmacist, while Emily sat in stunned silence. When he hung up, his smile was gentle but determined. "Liam's prescription is covered, $200, plus extra refills for the next 6 months." He looked directly into Emily's eyes. But this is just the beginning. The diner had become a theater of amazement, with Betty wiping tears on her apron and old Jim spreading news that would ripple through Willow Grove like stones thrown in still water. But not everyone embraced this sudden burst of Hollywood magic. Mayor Thompson, a man whose political career had been built on broken promises and backroom deals, stormed through the diner's front door with the fury of someone whose corruption thrived in darkness. "This is nothing but a publicity stunt," he declared loudly, his voice carrying the authority of office and the bitterness of a man who'd forgotten how to believe in genuine kindness. "Don't let some Hollywood actor fool you into thinking he cares about our town. He'll leave tomorrow and forget we exist." His words planted seeds of doubt in minds already trained to expect disappointment. Emily felt the warm glow of hope flickering as Thompson's cynicism spread through the room like smoke. Maybe this was too good to be true. Maybe she'd been naive to believe in fairy tale endings. But Keanu stood up, his presence commanding attention without demanding it. "I'll be back tomorrow to meet Liam and Clara," he promised, his words carrying weight that made Thompson's bluster seem hollow. "We're going to figure out how to help this town remember what it means to dream." He left in a black pickup truck that seemed too ordinary for someone so extraordinary, leaving behind a diner full of people struggling to process what they'd witnessed. Emily rushed home through streets that suddenly felt different, charged with possibility she'd almost forgotten existed. She found Liam in his bedroom, surrounded by spaceship drawings that now seemed less like fantasies and more like blueprints for a future that might actually be within reach. Liam said, his voice still raspy from his latest attack. "You look different, like something good happened." Emily knelt beside his bed, her heart full of a hope so fragile she was afraid to speak it aloud. "A kind man is going to help us. Liam, he wants to meet you tomorrow." Liam clutched his latest drawing, a rocket ship with windows shaped like stars. "Is he really going to help us? Or is this just another grown-up promise that disappears?" Emily looked at her little brother, this brilliant boy whose dreams deserved wings, and for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to believe in miracles. The morning after Keanu's promise dawned gray and uncertain over Willow Grove, carrying with it the weight of disbelief that had settled like fog over the small Ohio town. Mayor Thompson paced his office on Main Street, his political instincts screaming danger as social media notifications flooded his phone. The video of Emily's encounter had exploded overnight, reaching numbers that made his small-town corruption feel suddenly exposed to a spotlight he couldn't control. Within hours, Thompson had called an emergency town hall at the Willow Grove Community Center, a building that had hosted more disappointments than celebrations over the past decade. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as residents filed in, their faces bearing the cautious hope of people who had learned not to expect miracles. Thompson stood at the podium with the practiced confidence of a man who had built his career on managing expectations downward. "Folks, we need to talk about this Hollywood circus that's invaded our town," he began, his voice carrying the authority of office but lacking the warmth of genuine leadership. "This Keanu Reeves character is using our hardship for his own publicity. Mark my words, he'll disappear faster than morning dew, leaving us looking like fools on national television." His words found fertile ground in hearts that had been broken too many times. Mrs. Larson from the flower shop, her hands still stained with soil from arrangements that rarely sold, nodded slowly. "I want to believe," she whispered to her neighbor, "but we've been promised things before." The doubt spread through the room like a slow poison, infecting the fragile hope that had begun to bloom. But Thompson had underestimated the power of witnessing genuine kindness. He had hired a local reporter to publish a scathing piece titled "Hollywood Star Toys with Small Town." But the article only seemed to fuel the fire of support that was building online. The hashtag #KeanuKindness had exploded beyond their small corner of Ohio, inspiring thousands of people to share their own stories of unexpected generosity and human connection. Emily sat in the back of the community center, her heart hammering as Thompson's words tried to steal away the miracle she had experienced. Liam was at home with Clara, breathing easier thanks to medicine that had seemed impossible just 24 hours earlier. The memory of Keanu's kind eyes and genuine promise felt more real than Thompson's cynical speech, but she could feel the room's energy shifting toward familiar despair. Something inside Emily snapped, the same courage that had driven her to approach a stranger in a diner now propelling her to her feet. Her voice shook as she spoke, but her words carried the weight of truth. "Mayor Thompson, Keanu Reeves paid for my brother's medicine yesterday, $200, just like he promised. If we can't believe in kindness when it's standing right in front of us, what do we have left?" Her question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the town had accepted about itself. Old Jim, who had occupied the same bar stool at Daisy's for 15 years, slowly stood up. "The girl's right," he said, his weathered voice carrying decades of disappointment and a glimmer of newfound hope. "I saw it with my own eyes. Sometimes miracles do happen, even in places like Willow Grove." Betty wiped her hands on her apron and joined the growing chorus of support. "That man looked at Emily like she mattered," she said. "When's the last time any politician did that?" Mike, the truck driver who had captured the moment on video, nodded vigorously. "My video's got over 1 million views now," he announced. "People all over the world are starting their own kindness challenges because of what happened right here." The tide was turning, but Thompson wasn't finished. His face reddened as he watched his carefully constructed narrative crumble. "You're all being naive," he declared. "This is nothing but a publicity stunt that will bring unwanted attention to our town. We don't need outsiders telling us how to live." His words might have carried more weight if not for the sound that began to fill the air outside the community center. The rhythmic thump of helicopter blades grew louder, drawing everyone's attention to the windows. Through the glass, they could see a sleek aircraft descending toward the field behind Daisy's diner, kicking up clouds of dust that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Emily's knees nearly buckled as she realized what this meant. He had kept his promise. Keanu Reeves had actually returned, and he hadn't come alone. The helicopter touched down with graceful precision, and as the rotors slowed, 4 figures emerged from the aircraft. Keanu stepped out first, his presence commanding attention without demanding it, followed by 3 companions who clearly weren't there for publicity photos. "Dr. Rachel Lee moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions. Her reputation as one of the country's leading heart surgeons preceded her, but her warm smile suggested she was here for more than medical consultations. Professor Karen Evans carried herself with the quiet authority of an educator who had spent decades fighting for underprivileged students, while Tom Carter's sharp suit and briefcase marked him as someone who understood how to navigate bureaucratic obstacles. The crowd from the town hall had spilled outside, drawn by the impossible sight of a Hollywood star keeping a promise to their forgotten town. Keanu approached the gathering with the same easy manner Emily remembered from the diner, but now his words carried the weight of concrete action. Yesterday, Emily lit a spark of hope with a $50 request, he began, his voice carrying across the field. Today, we're going to turn that spark into a fire that lights up this entire town. He announced the Hopetown Initiative with the matter-of-fact delivery of someone presenting a business plan rather than a miracle. Free healthcare for every resident. Educational opportunities that would bring the outside world to Willow Grove without requiring anyone to leave their roots behind. Job training programs designed to breathe new life into skills that had been declared obsolete by a changing economy. Liam had arrived with Clara, his small hand clutching a spaceship drawing that had taken him hours to perfect. The 8-year-old approached Keanu with the cautious wonder of someone meeting a real-life superhero. His breathing still labored, but noticeably easier thanks to his new medication. "I drew this for you," he said shyly, holding out the paper with hands that trembled from excitement rather than illness. Keanu knelt to Liam's eye level, accepting the drawing with the reverence of someone receiving a priceless artifact. His eyes grew misty as he studied the intricate details of rockets and stars, seeing in them the dreams that adversity hadn't been able to crush. "You remind me why I keep going, kid," he said softly. "Let's figure out how to build these spaceships together." The Hopetown Initiative began to take shape with remarkable speed. Sarah, a 16-year-old who worked part-time at the diner to help her single mother pay rent, found herself the recipient of an acoustic guitar and enrollment in a comprehensive arts program. Her fingers, calloused from waiting tables, would soon learn to coax melodies that captured the transformation happening around her. She began composing a song about Emily's courage, her lyrics weaving together themes of hope and the power of asking for help. Jack, a 40-year-old veteran whose military service had ended with invisible wounds that made traditional employment difficult, discovered purpose in a motorcycle repair program that would eventually become his own business. His garage would become an informal community center where young people like Liam could learn about engines and physics while older residents shared stories of resilience and renewal. Clara, whose arthritic hands had worked double shifts for 3 years to keep her small family afloat, received news that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. Dr. Rachel Lee had reviewed her medical records and scheduled a heart surgery that would add years to her life and quality to her remaining time with her grandchildren. The operation, which would have bankrupted the family, was completely covered by the Hopetown Medical Fund. For Emily, the most precious gift came in the form of opportunity without sacrifice. A full scholarship to study education online would allow her to pursue her dream of teaching while remaining in Willow Grove to care for Liam and Clara. The town that had once felt like a trap was becoming a launching pad for dreams she had never dared to voice. But transformation rarely comes without resistance, and Mayor Thompson wasn't prepared to surrender his grip on power without a fight. He began invoking permits and regulations with the desperate creativity of someone watching their carefully constructed empire crumble. "This entire operation is illegal," he declared at hastily called press conferences. "You can't just helicopter into a town and start throwing money around without proper documentation." His objections might have gained traction if not for Tom Carter's expertise in navigating bureaucratic mazes. The community developer had anticipated such resistance and arrived with a briefcase full of legal documentation that made Thompson's complaints seem petty and obstructionist. More damaging to the mayor's credibility was Carter's discovery of financial irregularities that painted Thompson's administration in an increasingly dark light. Old Jim, who had watched Thompson's career with growing suspicion over the years, finally found his voice. "I always wondered where the money went," he said at another packed town meeting. $2 million allocated for school improvements and hospital equipment over the past 5 years. And what do we have to show for it? Broken promises and excuses. The evidence was damning. Bank records showed systematic embezzlement that had robbed Willow Grove of resources that could have prevented the very problems Hopetown was now addressing. Emily, who had found her voice by asking for $50 from a stranger, now rallied her community to demand justice from their elected officials. The girl who had once trembled while serving coffee was becoming a leader who could unite a town around the simple idea that they deserved better. The battle lines were drawn, but for the first time in years, hope was winning. The morning of the Hopetown launch dawned crisp and clear, as if nature itself wanted to witness the transformation about to unfold in Willow Grove. The air buzzed with anticipation as residents gathered in what had once been an empty lot behind Main Street, now transformed into a community garden where hope would literally take root. Emily stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Keanu address the assembled townspeople with the same quiet intensity she remembered from their first meeting at Daisy's Diner. The ceremony was interrupted by the arrival of 3 police cruisers, their red and blue lights cutting through the morning sunshine like beacons of long overdue justice. Mayor Thompson's face went ashen as officers approached him with handcuffs and a warrant that Tom Carter had spent weeks preparing. The charges were extensive embezzlement, fraud, and breach of public trust that had robbed Willow Grove of its future for over 5 years. $2 million, Tom Carter announced to the stunned crowd as Thompson was led away. $2 million that should have built your new school, upgraded your hospital, and stocked your library with books and computers. That money is coming home, and it's going to build the foundation for everything Hopetown promised. The crowd's cheers mixed with tears of relief and vindication. Old Jim wiped his eyes with the back of his weathered hand, finally seeing justice for suspicions he'd carried for years. Mrs. Larson from the flower shop stood taller than she had in months, her doubt replaced by the solid satisfaction of truth revealed. Sarah stepped forward with her guitar, her 16-year-old voice trembling with emotion as she began to sing the song she'd written about Emily's courage. The melody was simple but haunting, her lyrics weaving together themes of desperation transformed into hope, of a small request that had moved mountains. She asked for $50 with a heart full of fear, Sarah sang. But courage sounds different when the world stops to hear. The entire crowd fell silent, many wiping away tears as they recognized their own story in her words. As the song ended, Keanu and Emily walked together toward a pile of carefully arranged wood in the center of the garden. The ceremonial bonfire would represent more than celebration. It would symbolize the burning away of old limitations and the igniting of new possibilities. Emily's hands shook as she held the torch, remembering how they had trembled while serving coffee just weeks earlier. Now those same hands were lighting a beacon that would guide other communities toward their own transformation. The flame caught quickly, sending sparks dancing skyward like tiny prayers made visible. The Keanu Kindness hashtag had evolved into something neither Emily nor Mike could have imagined when he first posted that video. The Kindness Challenge had spread across social media platforms, inspiring thousands of people to share their own stories of unexpected generosity and human connection. Each post carried the DNA of that original moment at Daisy's Diner, proving that courage could be contagious across continents. Mrs. Larson had enrolled in the community gardening program, her flower shop knowledge becoming the foundation for a thriving agricultural initiative that would eventually supply fresh produce to 3 counties. Mike, the truck driver whose quick thinking had captured lightning in a bottle, found himself coordinating transportation for Hopetown expansion efforts, his routes becoming lifelines between struggling communities and renewed possibility. But the most profound revelation was yet to come. 3 days after the launch, an elegant woman in her 70s arrived at Emily's modest home on Maple Street. Patricia Reeves moved with the quiet grace of someone who had carried important secrets for decades, her eyes holding stories that connected past and present in ways Emily couldn't yet comprehend. "I need to tell you about your great-grandmother Anna," Patricia began, settling into Clara's worn armchair with familiar ease. "And I need to tell you why my son knew exactly where to find you." The story Patricia unfolded seemed to bridge impossible gaps of time and circumstance. During the brutal blizzard of 1971, a young pregnant woman had found herself stranded on Route 23, the same stretch of road that would later claim Emily's parents. Anna Harper, working her shift as a night nurse at Willow Grove General, had been driving home when she spotted the desperate woman in the snowstorm. "Anna helped me deliver Keanu in the back seat of a car," Patricia continued, her voice soft with memory. "She stayed with us through the night, making sure we were safe, warm, and healthy. When I tried to pay her, she refused every penny. 'Kindness is what families do,' she told me. 'Someday, someone will need you to be the answer to their prayer.'" Patricia had never forgotten Anna's words or her selfless actions. Over the year, she had quietly tracked the Harper family, learning about the tragedy that had left Emily and Liam in Clara's care. When Keanu began his cross-country journey seeking meaning and purpose, Patricia had suggested he stop at Daisy's Diner. Knowing that Anna's great-granddaughter worked there as a waitress, Emily sat in stunned silence, processing the impossible circle of kindness that connected her family to Keanu's across more than 5 decades. Her $50 request hadn't been a random act of desperation. It had been the completion of a cosmic debt that began with her great-grandmother's compassion on a snowy night when hope seemed as distant as spring. "Mom told me about Anna my whole life," Keanu explained when he arrived to witness this revelation. "She raised me to believe that kindness creates connections we can't always see. Your courage in asking for help showed me that Willow Grove was exactly where I needed to start making those connections visible." The truth reframed everything Emily thought she knew about that day at the diner. She hadn't been lucky. She had been continuing a legacy of courage that ran through her family's DNA like a golden thread, connecting generations. Anna's kindness in 1971 had created ripples that were still spreading, still changing lives, still proving that love planted in one moment could bloom across decades. 2 years later, Emily stood before 500 community leaders in a Washington, D.C. conference room, her voice strong and clear as she shared Willow Grove's transformation. The statistics were remarkable: a 98% high school graduation rate, near zero youth unemployment, and comprehensive health care that had eliminated medical bankruptcies in their county. Hopetown had expanded to 53 communities across America, impacting over 100,000 lives with programs tailored to each location's unique needs and dreams. Liam, now 12 and breathing easily thanks to advanced treatment funded by Hopetown's medical initiative, had become the youngest leader of a national robotics team. His bedroom walls still displayed spaceship drawings, but now they were accompanied by blueprints for actual projects and college brochures from aerospace engineering programs. Sarah's music career had launched from that first song about Emily's courage, her albums carrying messages of hope to audiences who had never heard of Willow Grove, but understood its universal themes. At the conference, Emily met Lisa, a young mother from Kansas whose 8-year-old daughter needed surgery the family couldn't afford. The conversation felt like déjà vu, except now Emily was in the position to offer hope instead of asking for it. She connected Lisa with Keanu's team, beginning the process of bringing Hopetown to another struggling community where dreams had been deferred too long. The evening after her Washington speech, Emily walked through Willow Grove's community garden with Keanu and Liam, their footsteps soft on paths lined with trees named for residents who had overcome seemingly impossible challenges. The Thompson Memorial Oak honored the former mayor, who had eventually found redemption through community service after serving his sentence. The Harper family grove celebrated Anna's legacy and the continuing ripples of her 1971 kindness. "Emily," Keanu said as they paused beside the original bonfire site, now marked by a small memorial plaque, "your $50 question was never about money. It was about courage finding its voice, about one person daring to believe that strangers could become family, that help could come from unexpected places." Emily looked around at the thriving community that had grown from that moment of desperate bravery. Understanding, finally, that Anna's kindness, 53 years earlier, had started a fire that was still burning, still spreading, still proving that one act of courage could indeed change everything. The spark had become an eternal flame, lighting the way for countless others who needed to believe that hope was always possible, even in places where dreams had been forgotten. In her pocket, Emily carried a worn piece of paper, Liam's original spaceship drawing that Keanu had returned to her. On the back, Anna had written a note Emily had found among Clara's papers. Kindness plants seeds in gardens we may never see bloom, but love always finds a way to grow. The words felt like a prophecy fulfilled, a promise kept across generations, proof that courage creates connections that transcend time itself. The story of Emily and Keanu proves that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers a desperate request in a small-town diner, trusting that kindness exists in strangers who might become family. Their journey from a $50 tip to a movement that transformed 53 communities shows us that asking for help isn't surrender. It's the first step toward creating miracles. Every day, we face moments that could spark something extraordinary. Maybe it's offering help to someone struggling, or finding the courage to ask when we need support ourselves. Emily's trembling hands became steady hands that lit a bonfire of hope. Her voice that cracked with desperation grew strong enough to inspire world leaders. The Keanu Kindness Challenge continues proving that generosity is contagious and hope multiplies when shared. Anna Harper's 1971 act of compassion created a legacy that reached across generations, reminding us that every kind gesture plants seeds in gardens we may never see bloom. So be the person who stops to help, who asks when you need support, who believes in the impossible until it becomes inevitable. Share your kindness story in the comments and join the Keanu Kindness Challenge. Hit like, subscribe to Motivation for Success, and ring that bell for more stories that inspire you to dream bigger. Keep the fire burning, keep spreading hope, and remember that your next act of courage might just change the world. Thank you for watching.